So kind of the first question I had, and also you brought that up in your two truths and one lie, is that you lived in five countries. I'm really interested in that. So where are you originally from, and can you tell me more about kind of how you got to those five countries?
Well, uh, I actually started here in Iowa. Started in Iowa, just a farm town about half hour northwest of Des Moines. My dad's family is still there. We've got Century Farms. The Century Farm is one that's been owned by and run by the same family for over 100 years. So the family's been there for a long time. And I'm the one who sort of moved away and lived all around the world. The genesis of that was I was in junior high, seventh grade, and my local junior high school they offered language classes. So I took French. It was either French or Spanish. Those were the only two they offered. So I took French. And I'm sitting in my French class, the second day of class, and there's posters all around the room of different places in France. And I'm learning to speak another language, and it hits me like a ton of bricks. I still remember this. I was thinking to myself, here I am, I'm speaking another language or learning to speak another language. And wouldn't it be so incredibly cool to live and work in another country somewhere around the world? So you fast forward about almost 18 to 20 years, and I'm working with a company and working with their European operations, but doing it from the US. And my boss came to me along with one of my other colleagues and said, I think your resource would be so much better if you were actually working more closely with the operations. Would you consider moving abroad, moving to Italy, which was where the European headquarters of the company was, and doing the same job, but working much more closely with European management? And I don't even think he finished his question. And I said, absolutely, I'm there. So moved to Italy, which again, learned to speak Italian. Going through immersion courses was probably the most difficult thing I've ever done in my entire life, where for 3 weeks, 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, you do nothing but speak another language, one you don't really know. And then took opportunities to move around to other countries, other opportunities, came back to the States for a couple of years. And then with another company, they were expanding international operations, and I raised my hand again. So the five countries, just to run down it, are US, Italy, Holland, England, and Belgium. So all in Europe.
Oh, oh, that is so fascinating. It's always a dream of mine to like travel like a lot of different places. So that is so
Right.
amazing how you've been to like so many different countries. Kind of I was just wondering was you did mention kind of like learning the new language. It's very daunting. I am learning Spanish right now in high school, and I know it's not the easiest thing to learn another language, but what is something that you kind of learned from maybe going to so many different places and countries and learning different languages? Is there something that you kind of learned from that?
I love that question, Hannah. That's uh, every country. Um, every country has its own culture, its own pace, its own. Uh, for example, German. I found Germany and Switzerland, which the German-speaking areas of Switzerland, to be very precise in language and very precise in terms of how things work. Trains all run exactly on time, and when you go 1 kilometer an hour above the speed limit, you're speeding, and they will stop you. And don't ask me how I know that, but they're very precise. And then in Italy, for example, world moves at a much slower pace. The culture, the language, the mode of speaking, there's a lot more hand gestures. And you can work on a project and come to an agreement, but then the agreement is fine, but here's how I think we should operate day to day. So much less lax. You just sort of make it up as it goes along, and everybody's pretty much okay with that. So the languages and the mode of speaking and the it's related very closely to the culture of the country, the pace of the country, and the people, the food. There's so many different aspects, and I think language is just one little door you can open, but there's so much more out there to pick up and learn from it. So hats off in terms of to you in terms of learning another language. It's a very daunting task, and some people do really well at it, and others are very daunted by it, myself included. So
Yeah, I was wondering, do you have any maybe advice for me or some other people who are trying to learn a new language right now?
um, one of the downsides of the U.S. is there's not always a lot of good opportunities to actually speak the language or speak a different language. You have to seek them out, but I think you need to speak with native speakers. And I remember when I moved to Italy, even though I had had immersion classes, one of my first tasks was finding um, a rack to dry my clothes on after I'd washed them in my apartment. I go down to my local hardware store, or what I thought was a hardware store, ended up doing charades, doing a lot of gestures, trying to get them to understand. And they were so gracious to help a poor American who was just still learning. Um, but the ability to learn the language from native speakers, I think, is really it's far and away the best way. And the other item I just throw out there is you can't be afraid to make mistakes. Know that you're going to make mistakes and ask for them to help correct you, people who are native speakers. And once you put that fear of, oh, I'm going to make a mistake, everybody makes mistakes. Put that to the side or put it on the back burner and feel free to make mistakes, but have people help you along the way. I think will get you there so fast, much faster.
Yeah, my Spanish teacher does emphasize that too. Kind of like, don't be afraid to like make mistakes and like, kind of like learn from our mistakes. Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah, I definitely agree with that.
yeah.
From all the languages that you learned, which one would you say was maybe the hardest to learn or hardest to catch on to?
Well, when I was in school, again, I took French, and I took a lot of French in uh, junior high, and then into high school. I took 3 years, and then in college, I didn't know that if I'd taken my senior year in high school in French, I wouldn't have had to take anything in college because I would have met the requirements. Didn't know. So I had to take a couple of years in college as well. So I took French. Um, so it got to the point that I could speak, I could read, um, and then you throw Italian in the mix. And to learn Italian, my French kept coming out like nobody's business. Every time that I'd want to ask a question, I'd start asking it in French because it was my only experience with another language. It was the one I was most familiar with, and obviously was in the deep recesses of my mind, and it kept surfacing. So I spoke what I like to call Fritalian or Italiench for a while, sort of a combination of the two, and still have trouble separating the two out from time to time. So yeah, that was the biggest challenge, is making room for that second different language in my brain. It was a challenge.
Yeah, kind of like the mixing of two languages. I can definitely feel that it gets like there's so many words that are might be like really similar or just like it might be hard to like organize your each languages. I definitely agree
Yeah.
with. Um, I was wondering because you did go to maybe 5 countries and you've been traveling around the world. How has that like, or specifically, how has COVID kind of impacted that with maybe like travel restrictions and how are you kind of have you kind of I know there's like virtual traveling, maybe like there's some websites that you can like virtually travel
Mhm.
somewhere. Have you like looked into that, or do you, or what's something that you really miss about not being able to travel right now?
Well, I've been very fortunate that I was able to retire a couple of years ago at a relatively young age for many retirees. So I, at least with COVID, don't have the pressure of trying to work from home. So that's an upside, definitely is, as I see many of my kids and friends who are still working and trying to get up to speed on new technology like Zoom, and spending bulk of their days on Zoom calls. I'm sure that's not unfamiliar to you as well, Hannah. But uh, it certainly has put a hole in my travel plans, a pretty big one. We really we're very much hunkered down, to use a sort of a southern U.S. term, uh, and the circle is basically my wife and I, and we also have my oldest daughter and her husband and two of my grandchildren that we look after a couple days a week. So we're able to do that, and I'm thankful for the time I get to spend with them. So my circle's a little larger than most, but all ideas of travel and getting back out there and seeing a lot of the world that I haven't seen is just not happening. There's a couple of places, there are a couple of sites that do have virtual travel. Um, I must admit, I've not spent a lot of time on those, and maybe I should. One of them is something called Road Scholar, Road ROAD Scholar, and they give these tours all around the world to all these different places and very much learning opportunities in addition to travel. And I've looked at a couple of theirs, and I'm struggling to spend the amount they're looking for a 1 hour class, to be frank. But there's a couple of others that have come up now. I think Viking Cruise Lines has been on PBS saying they've got travel around the world, and I will look into a few of those. Definitely there's. I've traveled a lot of places and seen a lot of things, but there's always more, and every time I take these, I'm sure I'll learn even more than I thought I knew beforehand. So there's a couple ideas that you spurred in my mind that I will follow up on. I think that's a good question, good thought provoking one. Thank you.
Yeah, I I've been like I really wanted to like travel over the summer last summer actually, but obviously that did not happen. So I did kind of look into like Google Maps and just like virtually look and see.
Mm.
Um, so kind of like I know this might be hard to think about right now, but kind of like forget COVID for maybe a few minutes and say that just everything was all normal. Where would you travel to, or is there a place that you would want to travel to next, maybe?
Well, the first place I'd want to travel is a lot closer to home. My wife and I ended our professional careers in the Chicago area, and we still have many good friends there. And I would love to be able to go back and every year, and we've been doing this for almost 15 years now, we do Friendsgiving, which Friendsgiving is Thanksgiving celebration, but with the people you want to spend time with, not necessarily your family. So there's about 20 of us, and we've been doing Friendsgiving. It's been growing over the last more than a decade, and this is the first year we couldn't do it. So I would love to have a post-COVID Friendsgiving where not only we eat like kings and laugh and just thoroughly enjoy each other's companies, but we can give hugs to people that we know and love. Oh my gosh, that would be the best gift of all, right there. And one of my grandsons in the Chicago area I've not seen for going on a year now, and he's growing like a weed. And I would just love to be able to go play face to face with him and again, lots of hugs. So that would be the first place. The second would be thinking a little further afield, um, many of these same friends we do Friendsgiving with, there were about 8 of us that we took to Ireland. It's been 7 years now, and we're sort of trying to plan where's that next big adventure. So I was thinking in the north of England, the Lakes District and the Yorkshire Dales. Would love to go visit there. And it's just small villages. There are big cities, but probably would avoid those like anything and just go from small village to small village and meander. And we all tend to have just a tremendous time anytime we go anywhere together. So that's the one that at least comes to front of mind, but I've got other suggestions people have put out there. The national parks in Utah, for example, I've never seen, and many other locations and places. So again, I guess that's front of mind right now, but looking forward to it, obviously.
Yes, definitely. With like the vaccines and everything, hopefully we see kind of like the light in the tunnel, I guess, if that's like the
Yeah.
phrase we see a lot. But yes, hopefully everything will be back to normal soon so we can travel more places. That's always our biggest hope. But I know COVID kind of like did open up like a lot of new things such as like Zoom and kind of like working
Mhm.
outside and stuff, or working at home. What is one thing that you learned from COVID-19 and just like this pandemic in general?
Well, one thing I've learned is Zoom, which this kind of technology existed before, and in my working life, um, we always did conference calls, and even though I was working with people all around the world, it would have been nice to do Zoom calls with them. I had colleagues in India and Norway and China that I had never met face to face. And I think Zoom would have been an interesting way to at least use the technology that's out there. I guess I've also learned that I've learned to really appreciate the ability to slow down. And not just because I'm fortunate enough to be retired, but really just slow down the pace of life. That I don't have anywhere to go or anywhere to be today, for example, other than these calls, and which again, a very welcome diversion, very much welcome. But it's okay. There's plenty to do here, and there's plenty of things that I've been putting off for years, or said, when I get time, I really should, go through my storage room and thin things out. Well, guess what? My storage room has never looked better. So my garage has never been cleaner. So, and that's okay. It's okay, because if this is what we need to do to get through this and keep us healthy and alive and doing okay, it's a small price to pay. It really is. So,
Mhm. What is something that like kept you through this pandemic or something that like makes you happy during these times?
well, I guess getting through it. Uh, I love to cook, so I've been cooking up a storm, and even my wife has said, um, and she says I'm really improving at a lot of dishes to where she doesn't really have that much of an urge to go out to eat right now, because the meals, she says, at home are just as good, if not better. So that's a good thing. Um, I guess just more on the uh, overall front is just knowing at some point this will end. It will. And, it's lasted longer than anybody wanted it to. I think at first people thought a couple of months, this will be behind us. I'm grateful for those scientists who worked on all of these great vaccines that are coming out now. And thankful for everybody in the medical field and first responders and others who've been on the front line working just ungodly hours, trying to keep people with us and suffering significantly. And just knowing that at some point this will be behind us. So, is it inconvenient in the short term? Yeah. Is it kind of a pain in the butt? Yeah. Is it always going to be like this? No, no. We can get through anything. We really can.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. I do agree that like in the beginning of the pandemic or when it started, it's crazy to think that was last year in March. Like it's
Yep.
almost been a year, and I feel like that's kind of for me that's like really crazy to think about. It's like how fast yet slow things move, if that makes
Right.
sense. Like wow, like almost a year.
It has been. You're absolutely right. I hadn't thought of it in that term, but you're right. It's been about a year since we started locking everything down and isolating.
Mhm. Yeah, I just like realized this but that's like how time is just like really in reality it's just like really short, or it just feels like maybe 10 years seems like a really long time when you like say the word 10 years, but I feel like in reality it's not actually, or like it's like the feeling of it maybe, like I don't know.
Well, I agree with that. I mean, think back when you were young and you'd have a birthday coming up. It took forever for your birthday to get here, forever. And now um, the days go slowly, but the weeks fly by, if that makes sense. That I think as you age, you have a much more acute sense of time and the pace at which it's moving. I'm keenly aware of that. There's so many things I want to do, and it's the one unknown is how much time we have left to fit all those fun things into. So but yeah, that's a good observation. I like that.
Yeah, you did mention kind of like you have a cooking, or I think in your two truths and
Yeah.
one lie, you did mention that that was like your first job choice or to be a chef.
Uh, it, 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 uh, it was the kind of thing that I started cooking. Really, I don't know. I was probably 5 or 6, and we had some family friends that we would go to church on Sunday, and then we would stop by their house and we would all have breakfast. And there were family friends, but we called them Uncle and Aunt. So it was Uncle Charlie and Aunt Betty, and they were delightful people. Just always thought the world of that. But Uncle Charlie, and this was back in the right around 1960, so early 60s. Uncle Charlie actually cooked breakfast. I had never seen a man cook before I met Uncle Charlie. So Uncle Charlie's over there cooking up a storm. I pull up a stool next to him and I'm watching him do that. So after a couple of weeks, he has me cracking eggs and turning things over in the pan. And he was kind, and he would rave about how wonderful the eggs were that Chris cracked open, and who made the ham because it's the best I've ever had. He just made me feel so, so important. And that really started the spark. As I aged, I was always interested in cooking. I would find recipes, and my mother was kind enough to indulge me and allow me to cook some things. And I don't think I ever set the kitchen or anything on fire, at least that I can remember. But she encouraged it. And then when I got into high school, my very first job was I was a dishwasher at a coffee shop in a Sears store at the local mall. That was the first mall in the big city that I was living in at the time. And within a month or two, I moved up to sort of the short order cook. So I would do lunches and hamburgers and breakfasts and things like that. And when I was graduating high school, I thought I would like to be a chef. But this is long before there was no Food Network, there was no cooking shows, there was no anything. Uh, there were 2 shows, I should say, and each was half an hour. So I didn't know where to turn, and my guidance counselor in high school was at a bit of a loss in terms of where I should go to school or how I should study to do this. So spent time as an apprentice chef for several years and learned a ton and did a lot of dirty work to get there. But still to this day, I always loved, I would spend all day on the computer working through mathematical models and business models, and it was all theoretical. And then I would come home and I would use my hands to make something. And the benefit is then you get to eat a wonderful meal afterwards. So it was very different from what I did day in, day out.
Yeah, wow, that's really fascinating how like from a young age you're like exposed to like how to crack an egg and all that. Oh, I just have one quick question. If that's overthinking, but I was wondering, what's like the most or the proudest like meal that you made that you're most proud of?
Oh, that's a tough one. Um, I remember making, oh, here's a good one. In high school, there was a group, about 10 of us, and we would hang out regularly. And one night, we decided one night we would make a meal together. And, a couple people would make the something to start off, and a couple people would make a salad, a couple people would make a main course. I got dessert. I made a chocolate souffle that came out, and it was probably, it was massive, and it brought the house down. I mean, it was the first time I'd ever made one. Didn't know if it would turn out or be sort of this uh, blob at the bottom of the pan, but it was a big hit. So I still remember that very fondly.
Oh wow, that sounds delicious. I'm getting hungry now.
So I guess start by telling me a little bit about yourself.
Oh yeah. So I'm a junior at West or I would say West High School, and
Mhm.
um I would say, or kind of the things that I'm involved in are journalism. That's how I found out about this opportunity, and I'm very glad that our advisor has shared this with us. This is very fun to do. So hopefully I can do more of these, and also, I also do a lot of, well, not a lot of sports, but I do a few sports, swimming and soccer. I've been swimming since maybe like five when I started with doing this little recreational like level one swimming where you like tuck your head under the water and how I started. And also soccer, I did like tiny tot soccer when I was little, and I didn't haven't doing soccer like continuously. I've been doing it like for like 2 years and then took a break and another 2 years, and it's kind of going on and off. But right now I'm in the club Iowa Soccer Club. It's in Iowa City, but yeah, that's kind of like a few things that I do in my time. Obviously school too.
Mhm.
I do homework and stuff, but yeah, that's kind of like overall what I do throughout.
Okay. Well, that's helpful. Thank you. Obviously, as we talked, it's been a year since COVID has sort of thrown the world on its head. Um, how have you been coping with this?
Yes, definitely the first few months of the pandemic, March, maybe through like June, it was very difficult for me because it was just like too sudden, just like all of a sudden I just stopped seeing my friends and seeing people in general. So
Mhm.
I am like pretty kind of like social. I really love people and like talking to people. So for me, that was definitely the most difficult part about the pandemic as a whole. And so I've been finding kind of ways to keep in touch with my friends, whether that's like FaceTime or maybe just like a simple text. That's kind of what's keeping me through. Just like really interacting with my friends in some way, shape, or form. Obviously, I love to see them like in person, but
Mhm.
um, it's obviously things will kind of have to change through that. But I've been adjusting like my communications with my friends. Definitely keeping in touch with them is like keeping me through.
Right. Well, are there any positives you see coming out of this um, COVID environment that we're all living in?
Yeah, I would definitely say the Zooms. I know I feel like I actually didn't know what Zoom was actually sent into like last March when we had to use all of it. So I did get myself familiar with Zoom, but I just love just kind of like how you can be connected, like you can be connected with someone from far away, and it I feel like in my mind being connected with someone was always just like, oh, someone next to you or like someone who you're like actually talking to one on one in person. But actually being on Zoom with someone maybe across the country or maybe like somewhere in a different country, like it's so easy to like be connected with someone who you maybe didn't even know until like you've been on a Zoom call with. So I feel like that one positive thing for me was just like being able to like get to know people that you never seen before, or it's I feel like that's like really a good thing for me, at least from the pandemic.
And I absolutely echo your sentiment that there's lots of things we can do on our own that perhaps we were too busy to do. So I can absolutely appreciate that. So name one thing that makes you smile.
Um, hmm. It's kind of hard to name one thing, but
Several then, several.
yes, I would have to say a few of the things that make me happy or are definitely like my friends and my family. Just being able to like just talk to them and being having like in them in my life just like really lightens my day. It's very nice to just have someone to talk to and also just someone to kind of just like spend every day with. It's very nice to have that, which makes me very happy. Also have to say my give a shout out to my two cats I have. They're very I'm a big cat person, and I really love cats, and especially my two cats that I own. They're very cute, and I really like love them. So yeah, definitely my.
Oh, good, good. I know a lot of people are doing a lot with pets, probably more than they had been before the pandemic. So again, absolutely, I think that's important. Let me go back to one item you mentioned a little earlier when you were talking about your interest in school and journalism, which is how you found out about this opportunity. How did you decide, or what made you think I really want to do this Gen Stories?
Oh yes, for GenStories specifically, like I said, I just really love people and just like really love talking to people, and especially most of the people that I talk to are people in my grade or kind of people the age is around me, or just people who go to my school. So I really wanted to kind of like talk to someone, especially take advantage of the opportunity of Zoom and stuff, be able to talk to someone who's not in my generation, and also just like hearing about different experiences is just like what I really love and just really love and really enjoy too. So that's what really drew me into Gen Stories, especially.
Well, again, I just think that's incredibly cool. And again, I want to say thank you for doing this. I think this is a cool program, and I'm glad you sort of put your hand up or step forward and say, yeah, absolutely, let's do this. So kudos to you. Um, I guess given that we've been about a year into COVID, and hopefully we've got a light at the end of the tunnel that this will end. Um, what would you like to be doing in about 5 years or so, either next year or 5 years from now, that you're not able to do now?
Yes, for me, I would really have to say just meeting new people like in person more and also more. I really just loved seeing new things, trying new things out. As scary as it seems, that's kind of like what I like to do. Kind of just like obviously not all the time it goes well, but I just kind of like taking that risk, just kind of try new things, see how it goes. If it doesn't work out, okay, just start back over, see just
Mhm.
see another thing. Um, I do really want to travel, have more opportunities for traveling, whether that's in the country or maybe outside of the country. Especially with COVID restrictions, that's not really possible right now. But as you said, kind of like the light at the end of the tunnel. Hopefully things will get better in the next year or at least 5 years. Hopefully,
Right.
travel more and just interact with like new things that I never had before.
Well, you piqued my curiosity with your comment that you like to perhaps try things that are unique and different, and sometimes they work out well and sometimes not so well. Is there an example of one, and you get to pick whether it turned out well or not well, your adventurous spirit to try something new and different?
Yeah, I would have to say, when I was at elementary school, I did try out acting and musicals. I did really enjoy them, and I was like, "Oh, let's give it a shot." A lot of my friends were doing it too. Or one of my close friends were in plays, and I actually watched them. They're in their plays, and that's what kind of sparked my interest in maybe like in acting and musicals. Um, not saying I didn't. Not saying it went horribly wrong, but in my opinion, I would say I wasn't too good at singing as I thought it would be. So, yeah, like I mentioned, it didn't go horrible, but it didn't go well, I would say. So, I that's when I realized maybe I can find something new that's not involving singing in it.
But now you know. That's good. That's good. You know,
Yeah.
I often say that learning what you're not good at is almost as important as learning something you are good at. So it just narrows the list. So um, you said you're a junior. Obviously, it'd be great if for certainly for next year, for your senior year, assuming things go well, that you could be back in school and have all those great experiences of the senior year. What comes next? What's your thought in terms of what's next for Hannah?
Yeah, I've been thinking about my senior year, and we are like actually registering for like our classes next year already, which is kind of
Mhm.
scary to think about. But um, just really hope my senior year next year is just like some sort of normal. I know the grade above me, the grade 2 years above me had um, COVID just really impacted their junior year and senior year especially. Um, I just really hope that I get to experience some of the things that what a typical senior year will look like.
Mhm.
It's like I don't know, maybe prom or just like those senior parties, just all that. I just really hope that I get to experience those things, and
Mhm.
even if I don't, in some way, shape, or form, I would hopefully have like a like quote normal senior year, I guess. But
Mhm. So, what comes after senior year? What are you thinking at this point?
yeah, I've been also thinking about kind of what comes next after I graduate. I'm thinking into kind of like what I want to do in college, but I'm really interested in like psychology and um, what's it called, like behavior or like
Mhm.
behavior and stuff. So I'm looking into kind of that, seeing any colleges have any programs like that I might be interested in. I don't have like a specific college that I have like my eyes on or anything like that. So, like exploring a different, see what's fit for me and just kind of like Google, like what's it called? Kind of in process of like Google searching or like kind of like that process right now. But
Okay. All right. Um, I guess tell me one thing you're good at and one thing you'd like to get better at.
hmm, if I have to choose one thing, um, I'm good at, I guess I would
Mhm.
say, maybe this is kind of hard. I would, hmm,
It can be anything.
hmm, I would maybe I would say kind of like one thing I might be good at is maybe like communication. I guess I don't know if that's good,
Mhm.
but like maybe just like being like the ability like to talk to like new people, especially. The weird thing is, like, I used to be like really shy, especially in kindergarten. I was like that one person that would hide behind mom and when a new person would come up. But I think it was like high school when it was like I met so many new people, and especially for journalism, when I like started interviewing new people that I never met before, that kind of like really opened my eyes, just saying like, wow, people can be interesting, or people are be fun to like talk to people. So I would say through journalism has really built my ability or built my skills to kind of like communicate with other people and stuff like that. One thing I would say I'm not too good at, um, I I feel like I can't really like put it into like one thing, but if I have to choose, I would probably say kind of like I not saying that I'm like an overachiever, but I do kind of like tend to things to be perfect. So I do kind of like want everything to like be perfect, and that can be like in a way it can be a good thing, but obviously it can be really, I would say, like toxic if you think about it. So I kind of be like especially with like COVID and most like all my things are that I do for school are like online, and we have kind of more time to work on stuff. I kind of find myself kind of like working to last minute, like it has to be perfect, but um, I just realized like, oh wait, it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, it would be ideal if it's perfect, but um, I don't have to. I just realized like it doesn't have to be like 100% perfect 100% of the time. So I've been trying to like keep that in mind and saying like, hold on, it doesn't have to be perfect. So I think that's one thing I'm working on, kind of.
Yeah. And that's a good one. You're not alone in that. I can tell you many of us, and certainly I see Julie's head nodding. I'm very familiar with that as well. So that's a common item, and you're right. So again, nothing to feel bad about at all, and just the realization that you do it, and perhaps there's some flexibility there. I think is a huge learning. So kudos to you. Um, well, another question. Aside from your parents, who's influenced you most in your life?
Mm, I would have to say, or besides my parents, I guess I have to say my sister, if yeah, if that counts like another family member. But
Sure.
my sister, she's 7 years older than me, six and a half, somewhere
Mhm.
around there. But she is pretty much pretty older than me, and she goes to college, or she went to college in Japan, and she actually right now. So I haven't seen her in person in quite a long time, maybe 2 years or so. But we do stay connected. But um, as I don't know, as cheesy as it sounds, I do really look up to her. She she probably doesn't notice really, but I do like kind of secretly just really look up to her, and it's I was kind of like the copycat of her. Whatever what she did, I was like, oh, since she did it, I would do it.
Mhm.
It's kind of like that, um, like older sibling and younger sibling like relationship that we kind of had. Just like I would, she kind of did hate that I always copied her, but for me, that was kind of like she's really was my influencing me like what I do now. Like I wouldn't have been involved in journalism if it wasn't for her, because I was involved in journalism in high school and she really recommended it to me. And at first I wasn't too sure because I knew I wasn't the best writer, or I didn't really love reading stuff back then. But now I'm really glad that she recommended or journalism to me, because now it's like such a big part of my life, and if it wasn't for her, like I wouldn't have been able to. So I would have to say like definitely my sister has played a big role in my life.
I love that story. Being the youngest of five kids, I absolutely could appreciate how you do look up to your big brothers, big sisters, whatever, and they sort of set a direction and a track that those of us who follow are certainly influenced by. I see it in my grandsons. My older one is doing things, some which I prefer he didn't, but the younger one just copies it all. So, so yeah, that's again. I think that's again. I really like that response. Um, Thinking back, is there an accomplishment or something you've achieved that you're most proud of? What would that be?
Yeah, I would say kind of tying back to like journalism, but probably my biggest accomplishment is um, just being on staff, or my West Side Stories staff, which is our high school newspaper that I write for. But probably it's not like a specific thing, but just being able to be on the staff, I feel like it's just a big accomplishment for me because when I was in elementary school, junior high, when my sister was on staff, I was like West Side Story seemed such a faraway thing from me, and it was so professional. So I was like, oh wow, like I couldn't even think of myself being on this such professional staff. And but now that I think about it, being on that staff now, it's just amazing how like wow, I'm on the staff that like a few years ago I thought like really looked up to, and now I'm part of it. So I feel like for me that's like my biggest accomplishment, just being able to just be part of such amazing program that we have at West, and just being able to like just like I don't know, yeah, just being able to be on the staff is just like award like very rewarding to me, and I just like love it. Yeah.
That's great. I love that. And again, just being part of an organization that you looked up to and perhaps never thought you could be part of or imagine that you would be part of it, and now you are, and you realize that. I love those kind of learnings. Those are the kinds of things that take us from just daydreaming or thinking about something and actually making it occur. So good for you. Um, I, I guess what's your favorite place you've ever visited?
Um, so I go to Japan every summer, at least until last year. But I really enjoy going to Japan because, or both of my parents are from Japan, so they have more knowledge about like the culture and and kind of like more memories with them because that's where kind of like they grew up their childhood. But for me, like I said in my two truths and one lie, I never moved houses before. I just kind of always stayed in Iowa and never really traveled anywhere besides maybe Japan every year. But I feel like going to Japan, it really opens up like a new culture for me, and kind of like it really introduces like a different culture and my especially my parents' culture. So I just like love learning about it, and being there is kind of like a second home for me, or I don't know if it, or maybe my first home or second home. I don't know, but it's just like another place for me to be, and I just really love that. And the people there are amazing, and their food there is extraordinary too. It's I love their food there. I tend to eat a lot when I go there, so yeah, but that's all right. I, I feel like that's it's all rewarding. So.
No, I love that. Now, I've not had an opportunity to visit Japan before, but it's definitely a place that I would welcome an opportunity. Again, I understand it's very unique, very vibrant, and I've heard the same thing about the food, that the food there is incredible. So that also has it high on my list. So glad to hear that. I guess just one other item, a bit more um, philosophical, or maybe I'm overblowing it, but is there a final thought or a piece of advice that as a teenager you'd like to have a senior know about you or your generation?
Mhm. Um, Probably for me, I mean, I can't really speak from all the teenagers for,
Mhm.
but especially like for me and also maybe people around me, I would say the biggest thing, especially during COVID, it's there's a lot going on in our lives. And I know with school is like different and like no other year. I especially for speaking of like obviously the community school district, there's two completely different learning models now. It's just all in person or all online.
Mhm.
That I feel like that really divided our student body. I feel like so it's I I know like a lot of people are going through things whether they're in person or online. We each like all have our own like challenges and just like a lot of new things and we just have to adjust every day, which I know is very difficult for a few people, a few students especially or especially high school students with all their activities and homework and schoolwork that they have on their back always, like always having those weight on their shoulders. But yeah, I would have to say the difficulty of adjusting. I know this applies for everyone actually, I feel like, but just especially for high school students, the uncertainty of every day has been the biggest wall, I feel like, or biggest like hit point for us.
Right. Well, and I appreciate you sharing that. I mean, I read about it, I hear about it, but I'm not living it. Again, I've been able to step away and been very blessed to be able to step away from the work world and not have to be on Zoom all day and try and learn from a distance. I have friends who have children who are teachers, and they're also struggling mightily making this kind of adjustment. It's a big adjustment for everybody. But again, I'm very fortunate to not be on the front line at this stage, and certainly thankful for that. But appreciate. I think you summed up pretty succinctly the kinds of pressures and changes, and again, nobody wants you guys to get back to a normal life and have a great senior year more than this generation. I guarantee you that. So we can all get back to it. So. Okay, when you go to Japan, you eat all this wonderful food. What's your favorite thing to eat there?
Oh, that is a hard question. Yeah, I would say there. I know I do still eat a lot of sushi here, but I feel like the real sushi is in Japan, obviously, because that's where they make.
Mhm.
It's just the real or quote real sushi, I guess. It's that's what I really look forward to when I go there. And there's also a lot of different other foods. I really love their um like desserts. They have a lot of really good. I don't know how to explain it. There's like a few kind of like the things that you like can like walk and eat. So it's kind of designed that you
Mhm.
buy it and then you just like walk and eat in the streets. But there's like a big like oh, it's hard to explain. It's like a corn dog, but it's not. It's
Okay.
it's like a stick where there's like a bunch of ooh, it, oh yeah, this is really hard to explain. It's like,
But it sounds like it's a dessert on a stick that is just to die for.
yeah, yeah. That's
That's good. I like that. Now I must remember that.
yes, I would definitely recommend going there and definitely eating lots of different foods. There's a lot of things there, so
Good. Well, I just like to take a moment. I know we're winding up on time, but Hannah, I'd like to say thank you for signing up. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. It was a pleasure to meet you. Thanks for sort of stepping forward and saying, I'll do this. It really is appreciated by me. And I just wanted to let you know. So thank you.
I don't know. I want to like bounce those back words back to you because I've really enjoyed this so much. I really hope I can speak to you some again. I know it's like hopefully maybe in person someday, but
I'd love nothing more.
yeah, thank you so much for spending your time on a Saturday afternoon with me. It's been so fun.